Yes, Pastor Anderson here. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for taking my call. I had a question about the passage in Luke 16, I think it is, where the gulf between Lazarus and the rich man, and how some people would use this to say that paradise or the heaven is at the same location in the center of the earth, but there's a divide between them, and that would also make sense in the sort of thing of like when Jesus says to the man on the cross that um, today I will be with you in paradise, because Jesus went to hell when he died, but the man on the cross went to heaven. And so I was just wondering what your take on like where the location of heaven is based on that.
I don't believe that there's ever been any kind of paradise or heaven in the center of the earth near hell whatsoever. I don't believe in that for 1 second. It doesn't make sense. There's too much scripture that would go against that. The Bible clearly says in Acts 2:31 that Jesus' soul was in hell, and that's what I believe. As far as today shalt thou be with me in paradise, Jesus Christ being divine transcends time. And so John 3:13, when Jesus is talking to Nicodemus, he said, no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. So, because God transcends time, Jesus also, in a sense, transcends time. And so he can also be in more than one place at the same time, because the Bible talks about people that are burning in the lake of fire as being tormented in the presence of the Lamb. But then we also know that the Lamb is also, seated at the right hand of the Father.
So do you think like that's sort of just that being in two places at once, that during that instance from hell you can see heaven?
Now, here's what I think about that instance. So that, I didn't answer your question about Luke 16 yet. I was just kind of giving those thoughts. So let me actually answer your question about Luke 16. In Luke 16, you have a man in hell who lifts up his eyes and sees Abraham afar off, and he has this conversation with Abraham, this back and forth. Now, I guess the people who believe in this two-compartment theory, they would have us to believe that everybody in hell is just kind of hanging out right next to the border, and Abraham and Lazarus and people like that are just kind of hanging out, and they're just kind of yelling back and forth to people from hell. And this is not a regular occurrence. In order for people, think about it, hell is a place of weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. How could you even be heard above all that screaming? How can you see Abraham afar off when you're in total darkness? Okay. Obviously, this is just a supernatural occurrence because the guy first got to hell. He just got to hell. So he's basically having this encounter, kind of explaining to him why he's there and what's happening, and just this conversation's happening. So this is a supernatural occurrence. This isn't just an everyday occurrence where everybody's just kind of hanging out by this gulf. If there's a great gulf, they wouldn't be able to normally talk over that great gulf, because how could you be heard with all the other noise and things going on? This conversation isn't just going on all day, every day. This is just a conversation that supernaturally was allowed to take place. And the great gulf is the great gulf between heaven and hell. You're sitting in it. You're sitting in that great gulf right now. There's a great gulf between heaven and hell, but God supernaturally allowed them to communicate briefly so that we could get this scripture. But it's not just all day, every day. People are begging for a drop of water, and Abraham just keeps telling people no. I mean, you think Abraham's just telling people no all day, every day? Like, no, you can't have any water. No, you can't come over here. It's like a one-time deal.
All right. Thank you. That answered my
Yep.
question.
Yep, no problem. God bless you. Yeah, there's too much clear scripture about hell being in the heart of the earth, being down, being in the center of the earth, depths of the earth, nether parts of the earth, and about heaven being upward and paradise being upward. He was caught up to paradise, on and on and on. Even in the Old Testament, Elijah was caught up to heaven in a fiery chariot. The spirit of man goeth upward.